Adobe Acrobat is still the default for a lot of people, but honestly its interface can feel a bit dated and chaotic, and at this point subscription fatigue is very real. So in this video I want to talk about an alternative I've been testing. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Max. I've been using Adobe products for years, and for the longest time I just assumed Acrobat was the only logical option. But just like now we have Affinity as an alternative to Photoshop and Illustrator, or DaVinci Resolve competing with Premiere and After Effects, I thought, why not look at alternatives for PDFs too? That's where UPDF comes in. They reached out and asked me to try out their AI integrated PDF reader and editor. And if you've been following this channel for a while, you know I'm always trying to simplify my workspace, reduce clutter, reduce complexity, and ideally reduce monthly subscriptions too. So let me show you how I've been using UPDF as an Acrobat alternative, which features actually matter in real workflows where the optional AI tools are genuinely useful, and why I think the cleaner user experience is honestly one of its biggest strengths. And one thing I already really like, a single license works across multiple devices and operating systems, desktops and phones included. When you open UPDF, the whole interface already feels calm. Nothing is fighting for your attention, and the layout is very easy to understand. In the center, you have the main quick access toolbar. The left side handles navigation and organization, and the right side focuses on exporting or interacting with the AI tools. And personally, I think they've found a really nice balance here. A lot of features are organized behind icons, expandable menus, and collapsible panels, but they still stay accessible when you need them. So the interface feels clean without being stripped down. That creates a much better visual hierarchy with less cognitive overload and less visual noise. And that balance matters a lot, because many simple apps remove too much functionality in the process of becoming minimal, while many professional apps go so far in the opposite direction that they become visually exhausting to use. I also noticed they handle shortcuts really well. When you hover over tools, the keyboard shortcuts appear immediately. For example, there are Option plus number shortcuts for switching between major toolbar sections, which makes repeated workflows feel much faster over time because you naturally start memorizing actions. There's also a surprising amount of customization without it becoming overwhelming. You can switch between light mode, dark mode and auto mode, adjust preview text sizes, commenting preferences, measuring settings, and a bunch of smaller details that make the workspace feel more personal. The viewing modes are useful too. You have single page and two-page layouts, plus eye protection style backgrounds for reading at night. And that's something I personally value a lot in software, when it adapts to the way you work, instead of forcing everyone into one rigid workflow. Everything here is organized around the core action people actually perform inside PDFs. Comment, edit, form and redact. You've got the standard tools like selection and hand navigation, but also highlighting, strike-throughs, insert and replace text, sticky notes, color text boxes, freehand sketching, shapes, lines, basically all the markup and review tools you'd expect. And as I mentioned earlier, it works really well across devices too. Whether you're on a desktop or quickly sketching ideas on your phone, the workflow stays pretty natural. The color text boxes are surprisingly customizable as well. You can adjust colors, fonts, opacity, line thickness and more. So annotations don't just look generic. They actually match the style of the document or workflow you're building. There are also some more design-oriented tools hidden here that I didn't expect. For example, measurement tools. You get distance, perimeter and area measurements, with detailed unit controls for things like pixels, inches, centimeters, scale ratios, positioning and more. Then there's the attachment, sticker, stamp and signature system. You can attach files directly into the document, customize attachment icons, use pre-made stickers, or even generate AI stickers through text prompts if you have the AI subscription. The stamp system is also practical. You can create custom approval or branding stamps using dates, upload assets and different information fields, which works really well for reviews, client workflows or document status tracking. And then signatures, obviously essential. You can create them using photos, a trackpad, mouse or even generate text signatures. Moving into the edit section, this is where UPDF starts feeling more like a proper document editor instead of just a PDF viewer. You can directly edit text, images, links and existing elements inside the PDF. One feature I especially liked is the selection filter. You can choose exactly what elements are selectable. So if you're working with a dense layout and only want to modify images, you can isolate image sections entirely, instead of constantly grabbing the wrong elements. The form section is also really packed. You get text fields, checkboxes, drop-downs, buttons, date fields, digital signatures, basically everything you'd need for contracts, onboarding docs, surveys, worksheets, or interactive business PDFs. But one of the most professional feeling features here is honestly the redaction system, especially if you work with clients or sensitive documents. You can redact text, images, pages, or specific words across an entire file with customizable overlay colors and labels. And the global search redaction is a huge time saver because you can instantly remove every instant of a word or phrase instead of manually scanning through large PDFs. But the feature I appreciate the most is probably document sanitization, because removing visible text doesn't always remove the hidden information underneath. UPDF can also remove metadata, embedded files, scripts, hidden layers, and other leftover data people often forget exists inside PDFs. And that's incredibly important before sending documents to clients, collaborators, or companies outside your own workspace, because sometimes the most sensitive information in a PDF is the part you don't see immediately. And the cool thing is, all of this just comes from the center toolbar. For navigation and organization tools, the left sidebar goes even further. Inside the sidebar, you've got multiple ways to navigate the document: pages, thumbnails, bookmarks, search, comment, form fields, and attachments. You can also reorder pages, insert, extract, split, rotate, or replace pages directly from the sidebar. The search tools are simple but practical. Besides standard search, there's also find and replace. So if a typo appears throughout a document, you can fix every instant quickly instead of manually hunting through pages. There's also a separate toolbox with additional utilities beyond the main toolbar. And if someone prefers a more minimal setup, they can even hide the center toolbar entirely and mainly work through the main toolbox instead. Inside the toolbox, you get features like OCR, compare, crop, split, watermarking, backgrounds, headers and footers, along with insert, extract, rotate and replace tools. And OCR is probably one of the most practical and useful features here, especially if you work with scanned documents or older archives. It can extract text from images, make scanned PDFs searchable, and basically turn image-based documents into files that you can edit. There's also language support for OCR and the options to preserve text recognition during export. Then there's file conversion, which matter because realistically, most people are constantly moving between different apps and formats. UPDF can convert PDFs into different document types, like for example PowerPoint. And it works in reverse too, so you can import various file types back into PDF format. There are also some nice customization tools that make documents feel more polished. For example, you can add watermarks for branding or document protection. And once everything's finished, exporting the project is pretty straightforward. On the right side of the interface, the focus shifts towards preparing documents to actually send them out into the world. This is where you handle saving, compressing, protecting, flattening, and exporting PDFs. And this covers one of the most common workflows people run into. You finish a PDF, try to send it, and suddenly the file is way too large. Or you realize you probably want some level of protection before sharing it. That's where the compression tools become useful. UPDF gives you multiple compression levels ranging from lossless and maximum quality all the way down to smaller file sizes for easier sharing. And what I like about it, you can preview the expected file size before exporting. So instead of randomly compressing the document and hoping it still looks good, you can make a more intentional trade-off between quality and size. Then there's password protection. You can add open passwords, permission controls, and different encryption levels depending on how secure you want the document to be, which is important for contracts, proposals, confidential client work, or really anything you don't want freely accessible in the moment it leaves your computer. Flattening PDFs is another feature that sounds technical at first, but becomes really useful in practice. It essentially locks the structure of a document down, including comments, forms, watermarks, and other editable elements. That's especially handy for finalizing deliverables, approvals, submissions, or archived versions where you don't want accidental changes later. One thing I also appreciate is that most of the core PDF functionality still works offline. And that matters a lot, especially if you travel often, work remotely, handle sensitive documents, or simply don't want your workflow fully dependent on cloud access at all times. And from a security perspective, UPDF also includes encrypted storage and backups, with infrastructure based in both the US and Europe. But for the more deeper technical details, they break it down more thoroughly on the website. And security becomes even more important once AI enters the conversation, which is why I actually appreciate that the AI features here are optional from the start. You're not forced to use it, but if you do, it genuinely feels extremely useful and very well integrated into the way the app was designed from the beginning. On the left side, there's an AI command box and copilot system that can suggest or perform actions directly. Things like converting PDFs to Word, compressing files, setting passwords, or starting presentations. Instead of digging through menus, you can just describe what you actually want. Then on the right side, there's the main AI sidebar, and this is where the document interaction becomes much more dynamic. The AI can summarize PDFs, explain sections, answer questions about the document, rewrite text, translate translate content, or let you chat with the PDF directly. Translation also supports more than 12 languages, and you can even include screenshots, images, and additionally visual references inside the conversation. One feature that stood out for me especially is the mind map generation. The AI can analyze a PDF and automatically turn its structure into a visual mind map. And I think that's one of the smarter uses of AI in document workflows, because sometimes understanding structure is more important than simply shortening text. There's also support for multi-document AI projects. So instead of only working with one PDF at a time, you can compare multiple files, analyze relationships between sources, generate broader summaries, and build larger research workflows across documents. Another feature I think is generally practical is semantic search. Instead of relying purely on exact keywords, it searches by meaning and context, which sounds small until you realize how often people don't remember the exact wording they're looking for. The AI tools can also help you with automated document management by detecting blank pages, inverted pages, missing pages, layout problems, and other issues before exporting or sending files out. UPDF 2.5 expands it further with additional AI agents, deep research tools, semantic search, co-pilot features, and broader automation tools. And that's also why UPDF AI now supports models like ChatGPT 5 and DeepSeek. So that's a lot, but who is this actually for? So after using UPDF for a while, I think it works really well for both professionals and individual users, especially people who regularly work with PDFs but don't want the experience to feel heavy, cluttered, or unnecessarily expensive, because it's really the bigger theme throughout the entire app, reducing friction. And to be honest, pricing is probably one of the strongest selling points here. There's a free version, subscription plans, but also a one-time purchase option, which is especially interesting because it costs around 1/4 of the price of Acrobat Pro. The AI tools are a separate subscription, which makes sense considering the infrastructure and ongoing costs behind AI systems. So if you're curious, you can check out the links in the description or my pinned comment for more information and discounts on the paid plans. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching until the very end, and I will catch you in the next one.